Hi, everyone, and welcome to Crime Chronicles. Today, I've got a story for you. Imagine waking up one day in a country where no child has a sibling. Every single person is raised alone because having a brother or sister is considered a crime against the state. And if parents dared to have a second child, the consequences were terrifying. This isn't fiction. This isn't some dystopian novel. This was real life, lived by more than 1 billion people. This is the podcast, What's Going On, produced by TPP. Here, I tell you real stories, shocking crimes, strange historical events, haunted places, and all those mysteries that make us ask, what's really going on with people? Some of these stories contain violence or disturbing details, so please read the description to make sure this episode is right for you. Now, let's begin today's story. The child who wasn't allowed to be born. Here, I tell you real stories, shocking crimes, strange historical events, haunted places, and all those mysteries that make us ask, what's really going on with people? Some of these stories contain violence or disturbing details, so please read the description to make sure this episode is right for you. Now, let's begin today's story. The child who wasn't allowed to be born.
In 2015, China closed a dark and bloody chapter of its history. The one-child policy officially came to an end, but only after it had changed the lives of millions. Why did China adopt such a brutal policy in the first place? Let's go back to the beginning. In 1979, China introduced the idea of the one-child policy, a campaign to control population growth. By 1980, it was written into the Constitution. But this wasn't just a public awareness campaign. It wasn't a friendly ad saying, plan your family. This was state policy, and breaking it could mean salary cuts, threats, forced sterilization, or even the death of a child. After Chairman Mao's death in 1976, China came under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping. The country was unstable, struggling to recover, and haunted by the fear of famine. The government's goal was clear: stabilize the economy. But there was one major obstacle. China's population was growing at a frightening pace. So on September 25, 1980, the Communist Party issued a statement urging strict enforcement of the one-child policy. And that's when the nightmare began. It wasn't just a single law. It was a directive, and every province, every village enforced it in its own way. That made the policy not only extreme, but often inhumane. Everywhere you looked, the message was the same: one child is enough. From billboards to TV ads to slogans printed on cookie wrappers, matchboxes, even playing cards. The official slogan was, fewer children, better lives. In the cities, the rules were harsh. In rural areas, some families were allowed a second child, but only if there was a 5-year gap and only with official permission. Even then, families were ashamed of having more than one child. Outside each home, a public sign displayed stars, each star representing how loyal the family was to party values. One of those stars was for obeying the one-child policy. So if you had 2 children, your family lost a star, and with it, your reputation as patriotic citizens. Any couple who dared have a second child without approval faced crippling fines. In Guangdong province, the fine could be 3 to 6 times the family's annual income. Women were forced to use birth control devices like IUDs, and if they missed mandatory checkups, they were fined monthly. Punishments went even further. cutting off water and electricity, blocking food rations, denying promotions, and even firing parents from government jobs. The stories are chilling. A Chinese couple studying in the US got pregnant with a second child. Their factory back in China sent them a letter. Because of you, the entire factory will lose its bonuses. Come back immediately and have an abortion. In another case, Madam Yu, a woman from Hong Kong, had 3 children and fled. The authorities kidnapped her father and told her, "Get sterilized or he stays in prison." And then came the darkest part. In many villages, family planning officials carried out raids. They burned the homes of violators. They kidnapped pregnant women, dragged them to hospitals, and forced them to undergo abortions and sterilizations. One worker admitted, "We beat people, we chase them, we force them to be sterilized, but I got used to it. It was necessary to enforce the law." Imagine being pregnant, taken from your home, forced into an abortion, and waking up sterilized without your consent. From 1979 to 2015, every couple with 2 children was forced to sacrifice one, and in 80% of the cases, it was the mother who paid the price. Some stories are unbearable. A woman named Ju was forced into an abortion, but her baby was born alive. She begged to keep it. The officials refused and killed the child. In another case, a man named Dong waited outside the delivery room for his wife. When he was allowed back in, the baby was gone, taken by officials. Local leaders were rewarded based on how many births they prevented. If the numbers went down, they got bonuses. If they went up, they were punished. And so, human life became just a statistic. This fueled child trafficking networks. Babies were abandoned in markets, left on the roadside to die, especially girls, because families wanted a son. In 1992, China opened international adoptions. From then on, tens of thousands of children were adopted abroad. Foreign families paid $10,000 to $25,000 per child. Meanwhile, local middlemen were collecting abandoned babies from the streets and selling them to orphanages for just $200 each. Many of those who participated believed they were saving the babies from death. Some mothers, forced to give up their children, left them at orphanages because it was the kinder option. But in reality, officials themselves were sometimes taking children from homes and selling them to orphanages, which then profited from foreign adoptions. Anyone who tried to expose this faced threats, censorship, or prison. Journalist Jiang Weiping tried to write about it. He was threatened, silenced, and fled to Hong Kong, where he later published a book in English, The Orphans of Shao. His work revealed how the one-child policy not only shaped lives, but also fueled a corrupt system of forced adoptions and human trafficking. The social consequences were devastating. The policy created a massive gender imbalance. In rural communities, boys were preferred as heirs and breadwinners. Girls were aborted, abandoned, or killed. Over time, the elderly population grew faster than the younger generation. China faced an aging crisis, with too few young people to care for the old. Meanwhile, countless hidden children grew up without IDs, without schooling, without jobs. Ghosts in their own country. Despite minor adjustments over the years, like exceptions for ethnic minorities, or permission for a second child if the first was a girl, the policy lasted until 2015, when it was finally abolished. From 2016, families were allowed 2 children. Propaganda shifted overnight. Slogans that once said, "1 child is best," now read, "2 children is ideal." But decades of indoctrination couldn't be erased so easily. Many families were too afraid of costs, too used to the idea that one child was enough. And when the 2020 census revealed a looming demographic and economic crisis, with falling birth rates and a shrinking workforce, the government had to act again. In 2021, China officially allowed 3 children per family, with promises of financial support, healthcare, and education reforms to encourage bigger families. Still, many remain hesitant. And that was today's story. If you found yourself asking, what's going on with people? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have a story you'd like me to cover, join our Facebook group, where we post real photos, sources, and discuss upcoming episodes. Stay tuned for the next case on Crime Chronicles.